设，富强、民主、文明、和谐、美丽的社会主义现代化强国努力奋斗。
中华人民共和国的国旗，现在正由毛主席亲手把它升起。参加大会的20万人民都一致肃立致敬，注视着人民祖国的庄严而美丽的5星红旗举起升起，已经上升到旗杆的尖顶，开始在人民首都的晴空里迎风招展。我们的国旗5星红旗将永远地飘扬在人民祖国的大地上。
28 salvos fired by 54 cannons. Thus, the Communist Party of China marked 28 years since its founding. To the sound of this salute, China entered a new era. Throughout long periods of history, China has been among the most advanced civilizations on Earth. It has been recognized as a great nation thanks to the lasting contributions its people have made to humanity. However, in the mid-19th century, the Opium War adversely altered the course of Chinese history. During the 7 decades from 1840 to 1911, the imperial Qing government was forced by the Western powers to sign more than 400 unequal treaties. The Boxer Protocol alone required China to hand over 450 million taels of silver. With interest, the final amount was nearly 1 billion taels, equivalent at the time to the national revenue for 12 years. In this way, China was reduced to a semi-colonial, semi-feudal society. The rejuvenation of the nation became a heroic cause, taken up by idealists from all walks of life. The Xinhai Revolution, led by Sun Yat-sen, brought to an end thousands of years of authoritarian dynastic rule. But what it failed to do was change China's condition as a semi-colonial, semi-feudal society. Following the October Revolution in Russia, Marxism-Leninism spread to China. A century ago, in 1919, the May the 4th movement set the stage for a popular democratic revolution. Two years later, in 1921, the Communist Party of China was founded. The character of the Chinese Revolution was fundamentally transformed. The Nanchang Uprising marked the start of armed resistance to Kuomintang rule. From its revolutionary base in the Jinggang Mountains, the CPC identified the path forward for the revolution. The 12,500-kilometer-long march across icy mountains and vast plains was an achievement of epic proportions. When the Japanese invaded, the entire population was mobilized to resist them. In guerrilla attacks and from bases behind enemy lines, people wreaked havoc on the aggressor forces. In liberating the country, the People's Army had only millet and rifles with which to defeat an enemy equipped with aeroplanes and heavy artillery. During the protracted Revolutionary War that followed liberation, the CPC endured ordeals and made sacrifices on a scale rarely seen in human history. Finally, in 1949, the dawn of a new China lit up the eastern horizon. Among the foothills of the Taihang Mountains, on the banks of the Hutuo River, lies Xibaipo Township. This was the CPC's final rural command post prior to its triumphal entry into Beijing. From this humble building, Mao Zedong and his comrades commanded a campaign that is celebrated in the world history of warfare. Lacking red and blue pencils, they used thread and needles to mark troop movements. Zhou Enlai once said, "We sent no men, no weapons, and no food. Instead, we defeated the Kuomintang with a steady stream of telegrams." In just 4 months and 19 days, the People's Liberation Army destroyed the Kuomintang's main fighting force, comprising 173 divisions and more than 1.5 million men. In March 1949, the second plenary session of the 7th Central Committee of the CPC convened in Xibaipo. During the meeting, Mao Zedong said, "To win countrywide victory is only the first step in a long march." The comrades must be helped to remain modest, prudent, and free from arrogance and rashness in their style of work. The comrades must be helped to preserve the style of plain living and hard struggle. On the morning of March the 23rd, 1949, the Central Committee of the CPC left Xibaipo for Beiping, as Beijing was known at the time. As he set out on the quiet road, bathed in the early morning sunlight, Mao Zedong cast a last, lingering glance back at the picturesque village. To Zhou Enlai, he commented that they were like the scholars of old, going to the capital for their final examination. Zhou replied that as they were sure to pass the exam, they wouldn't have to return. Mao responded, saying that returning would mean failure. They reached Beiping on March the 25th. Later that day, at Xiyuan Airport, Mao met more than 1,000 representatives and democratic figures from the city and conducted a troop inspection. A quiet old courtyard house is located among the pines and bamboo of the fragrant hills outside Beijing. This is Shuangqing Villa. As the site of an historic meeting of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, it would play a key role in the founding of the People's Republic of China. It was here that Mao Zedong and Zhu De issued the order for a military advance on all fronts. This is also where Mao Zedong wrote the poem, "The People's Liberation Army Captures Nanking." Before long, red flags were flying over the presidential palace in Nanjing. The PLA, as it advanced triumphantly southward, liberated city after city, village after village. In 1949, it was said that a song, "The Sky Above the Liberated Areas," traveled faster than a bullet. On April the 4th, the previous year, the CPC Central Committee had issued a rallying call. Democratic parties, mass organizations, and the social elite should act quickly to convene a political consultative conference, form a People's Congress, and establish a democratic coalition government. Responding to the May Day rallying call, democratic figures from all over the country secretly entered the liberated areas in the north to help prepare for establishing the new People's Republic. An initial meeting of a political consultative conference was held, which laid the foundations for a system of multi-party cooperation and political consultation under the leadership of the CPC. On May the 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong and the poet Liu Yazi had a conversation at the Summer Palace. Liu Yazi said, "Today we are victorious. We have waited for this for so long, yet we didn't think it would happen this fast." Such were the clever strategies employed by the chairman. Mao replied, "I used no clever strategies other than having the support of the people. Our 1 million soldiers could never have crossed the river without their support." In preparing to establish a People's Republic, the CPC was eager to win the support of an early revolutionary, Song Qingling, Sun Yat-sen's widow. At the start of 1949, Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai sent a letter inviting her to Beijing. In it, they expressed a desire to discuss national affairs with her. Song had been reluctant to go back to the city ever since the death of her husband there in 1925. Zhou's wife, Deng Yingchao, went to visit Song in Shanghai. She carried with her letters from Mao Zedong and her husband. Song Qingling was finally persuaded to travel to Beijing. When her train arrived, Zhu De, Zhou Enlai, and Mao Zedong were waiting on the platform to greet her. On June the 30th, 1949, to commemorate the 28th anniversary of the founding of the CPC, Mao Zedong published a speech. In On the People's Democratic Dictatorship, he systematically laid out the party's vision for the People's Republic. It reads in part, to sum up our experience and concentrate it into one point, it is the People's Democratic Dictatorship under the leadership of the working class, through the Communist Party and based upon the alliance of workers and peasants. This dictatorship must unite as one with the international revolutionary forces. This historic document formed the theoretical and political basis on which the People's Republic of China would be founded. On June the 15th, 1949, the first plenary session of the preparatory meeting for the new political consultative conference opened at Zhongnanhai in Beijing. The atmosphere was cheerful. China was about to embark on a new beginning. In his speech, Mao referred to the People's Democratic Republic of China. But during the meeting, some representatives pointed out that the words democratic and republic were similar in meaning. Only one was needed, and in that case, they considered republic to be more suitable. After a debate, it was unanimously agreed that the new state should be called the People's Republic of China. In late June, Zhou Enlai spent a week drafting a program for establishing the new state. After many rounds of discussion and repeated revisions, the common program of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference was ready. The common program established the People's Democratic Dictatorship as the form of government and the People's Congress as the organ of government. It also stipulated that each ethnic group should enjoy autonomy in its home region. The people were the new rulers of China, and so it was decided they should design the new symbols of state. In July 1949, newspapers and radio stations across the country announced that suggestions were being solicited for a new national flag, national emblem, and national anthem. From south of the Yangtze River to north of the Great Wall, thousands of people got to work creating designs and writing lyrics that would express their vision for the new country. The discussions on the design for the national flag gradually focused on an arrangement of stars. One suggestion attracted particular attention: a star representing the CPC and a line, the Yellow River. However, Zhang Zhezhong, a soldier and special representative, was against it, saying the line could be seen as dividing the country. Meanwhile, the playwright Tian Han believed he had found the ideal design: the 5-star red flag. It was created by an ordinary worker from Shanghai called Zhang Liansong. As Mao Zedong put it, the flag represents the great unity among us revolutionaries. We're united now and will be united in the future. Thus, it will always be good. It represents unity and revolution. His assessment found universal support. As for the national anthem, academic Ma Xiulun, artist Xu Beihong, and other representatives recommended March of the Volunteers from the 1935 film Children of Troubled Times. But some thought it inappropriate, arguing that the line, "The Chinese nation faces its greatest peril," was no longer relevant. They suggested changing the lyric, but Zhou Enlai disagreed, saying that doing so would detract from the song's vigor. And Mao Zedong said, "Is it really not relevant? I think it is. We're still surrounded by imperialism. We need to remain vigilant." On September the 21st, 1949, the first plenary session of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference convened at Zhongnanhai. The martial music, gun salutes, and applause lasted for 5 full minutes. The conference adopted 3 documents. One was the common program of the CPPCC, which would serve as a temporary national constitution. The other 2 were the organic law of the CPPCC and the organic law of the Central People's Government of the PRC. Beiping, renamed Beijing, would be the national capital. China would adopt the common era in its calendar, and the 5-star red flag would be the national flag. As for the March of the Volunteers, it would serve as the national anthem temporarily. It became official in 1982, and its status was written into the Constitution in 2004. The conference elected Mao Zedong as chairman of the Central People's Government. The vice chairpersons were Zhu De, Liu Shaoqi, Song Qingling, Li Jishen, Zhang Lan, and Gao Gang. The State Council was also established, with Zhou Enlai named as premier. China was finally at peace. At 3 p.m. on October the 1st, 1949, the founding ceremony of the People's Republic of China began in Tiananmen Square in Beijing. From the top of the Gate of Heavenly Peace, Mao Zedong declared the founding of the new country. Mao pressed a button, and the 5-star red flag slowly began to rise. The military parade began. Zhu De inspected the PLA. Behind the flag of the People's Liberation Army, 16,400 officers and soldiers marched in formation from east to west. Above, the PLA Air Force joined the parade. The foreign journalists present reported seeing 26 planes. But in reality, there were only 17. The 9 fighters at the head of the formation had turned back and made a second pass. To guard against attack, 4 of the planes carried live ammunition. After the military parade came a mass popular march. Tiananmen Square was filled with scenes of unrestrained joy.
这不仅是中国人的一件大喜事，确实是震动世界的一声巨响。中国人民站起来了。
我们过去做牛做马的，当天是这个中国的空人主人了，好多老手都调来。
从1840年开始，你说多少年了吧？109年，就是中国人民前仆后继呀，是不是啊？我想这个红旗真正是历史的鲜血染成的。
Even after the People's Republic was founded, there remained parts of the country that were yet to be liberated. In Chongqing, in southwest China, 2 Kuomintang prisons, the Bai Mansion and Jiazidong, were filled with communists and revolutionaries. The prisoners had poured their ardor and passion into weaving a red flag. Sadly, many of them died without seeing the victory flag fly over China. Meanwhile, the PLA was continuing to sweep across the country. The 1st Field Army was advancing northwest, the 2nd Field Army southwest, the 3rd Field Army southeast, and the 4th Field Army directly south. By late December, the whole of the Chinese mainland, except Tibet, had been liberated. The founding of the PRC marked the dawn of a new era for China. It ended, once and for all, the country's history as a semi-colonial, semi-feudal society. The disunity of old China had been confined to the past. After thousands of years, feudal autocracy had been replaced by a people's democracy. The Chinese people were now the masters of their country, their society, and their destiny. They had stood up, and the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation was entering a new stage. They had transformed the international political situation and given fresh impetus to the progress of human society. Inevitably, though, bringing about a fresh beginning requires great sacrifice. In building new China, countless revolutionaries had paid a heavy price. In the Revolutionary War alone, 20 million martyrs had given their lives.
第三地人民英雄们万岁不休。
就是